So I feel like mostly everybody can agree that overhead lighting sucks. Warm lamp lighting feels like this, cozy, warm, lovely. While overhead lighting feels like... And my shop does have some pretty decent lighting, but lately I've been feeling like something's missing. So I want to try making a tripod lamp. You might have seen these, they're pretty simple, I hope, but they typically run in the neighborhood of $80 to $100+. And I'm looking for something that is a little bit cheaper. To be honest, this might be one of those projects that ends up not being cheaper, but I still think it's gonna be a fun experience, and I'd like to make something unique along the way. There's a couple things that I think make a lamp really warm and inviting. One of them is Edison bulbs, but I also really like these metal black cages that oftentimes go around the Edison bulb. However, after looking around a little bit, I was unable to find something that was matching what I had in mind. So for that part of the build, I'm going to 3D print out of black PLA a large metal cage style lampshade. However, I'm probably not going to have enough time this week to do both things. So for this first part of the build, I'm just going to focus on the wooden aspects of the lamp. But to get started, I'm going to turn to Fusion 360, which I've recently been starting to learn, and do my best to design what I want the lamp to look like. So I'm pretty new to Fusion 360. Most of my expertise is actually from modeling and animating in Cinema 4D or Blender, which are both used for motion graphics, film, VFX, that kind of thing. But Fusion 360 is more for modeling and design for manufacturing, building, and that kind of thing. So it's definitely one of the skills that I'm going to be working on to get better at as I get better at building things. I think this design looks pretty good. It's not necessarily exactly what I'm going to go with, but it's a good starting point. So let's grab this and take it downstairs. So that's what the design is going to end up looking like, or something kind of like it. Oh, actually, let's turn that light on. So in reality, that build isn't that complex. There's 3 legs, a base, a small top portion, the bulb, and then a shade. So for this section, we're just going to focus on doing the legs and the base together. So for the legs, I picked up these 2 1x2x8 common boards. They aren't perfectly straight, but I've decided on 48 inches for the legs, or half of one of each, which means I'm going to be able to choose the straightest possible legs out of these 4 options. For the base, I have a couple options. I picked up this 1x4x8 pine board, and for this, I'm going to potentially use a tiny bit of it for the base, or some of the scrap wood I have lying around from previous projects. For the actual lamp part, I grabbed this $15 hardware from Amazon. I've done a little bit of electrical stuff in the past, but I haven't done any lamp stuff. This one is just from Creative Hobbies, and it came in a nice black color. And finally, for this project, I'm gonna go with this satin black premium Bear paint. It's a paint and primer in one, and it says adheres to wood, metal, plastic, and more. This can cost $6, and I think a nice black paint will just look good in this space. So all of this together, plus about $10 worth of black PLA I'm gonna use for 3D printing in the next part, comes out to about $40. And this is why I was saying earlier that this build might end up being not that much cheaper than just buying one on Amazon. But I'm gonna love it that much more because I made it myself. And also I think the lampshade that we're gonna 3D print in the next part is gonna make this really unique. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut this board into 2 shorter pieces. That'll give me a board of the correct size that I need to then trim to size for the base of the lamp, and then I can affix the legs to it. Also, I finally did get a roller at Harbor Freight. It was like $25, super cheap, but way better than the tripod I was using. So now I'm going to drill a couple of dowel holes into these boards and then glue them together. I have not done any doweling before. I know it's not a super strong joint, but this is really not that important of a bond. I just want to make sure that it's not going to split under the weight of the legs pushing against it. I see. So you must use this thing to drill a hole in the first one, and then you put this in the hole, and then you slide it up against your next board, and it makes an indentation exactly where you want to drill. That makes sense. put this in. And then on a flat surface, my guess is I go like this, and then just give it a squeeze. And then that gives me 2 holes for where I'm gonna drill. Hey! That's pretty good. It almost came out perfectly straight. If I had a planer, this is where I would put it through to make sure I could get a flat surface. But seeing as it's just the base, that should be fine. Now I'm gonna glue it together, clamp it, and then we're gonna move on to cutting the next pieces of wood. So I learned from one of the people that I follow, Hess Woodworking. He said that when you're clamping something like this, you want one clamp to go in one direction and the other clamp to go in the other direction. Otherwise, while it's setting, you're likely to get bowing. He also had the helpful tip that after you've clamped, you want to scrape away as much of the wood glue as possible that's leaked out from the edges so that you have less to clean up afterwards. I'm now gonna put this down for about 30 minutes and then come back when it's good and dry. While that dries, we're gonna go cut the legs. Okay, so both of these boards are about 8 feet long. I want 48-inch tall legs. I'm also gonna do a 10-degree angle of the cut at both the top and the bottom so that when the leg is standing up, it's got a nice lean to it. You may or may not be able to see from here, but these are not perfectly straight. I don't have a jointer yet, so I can't make everything perfectly parallel and square, but that is on my wish list of things that I will be getting. Okay, I think we're ready to go. Just like that, I've got 3 10-degree angle cut top and bottom legs that are decently straight, and as far as I can tell, they're all the same height. So now these can be attached to the base. So the solution I'm going with is going to be basically a triangle, except I cut off the corners. And then I'm going to attach the legs at each corner where I made a cutoff piece. I'm gonna start by making a 60-degree cut on the miter saw, and then I'm gonna make a 30-degree cut to complete the equilateral triangle. Then I'm gonna go ahead and measure at each point of the triangle where there's 1.5 inches, which is the width of the legs. And there I'm gonna make another 30-degree cut every time to just top off the points of the triangle so that the legs have somewhere nice on the triangle to be joined. That felt a little sketchy, and there might be a better way to do that, so if there is, let me know. But the end result is that I did get the base, and it actually came out really flat. The joint where I glued it and I put the dowels in is basically seamless, even though I didn't run it through a planer, so that's pretty lucky. I also ended up with 6 of these perfectly equilateral little 1.5 inch triangles, 6 of them because I did a small base to start with to see how to do it. Now I feel like I could put these together in some kind of interesting way to make a little art piece or wood desk thing. So that's gonna be fun to play with at some point. Now we've got the base, we've got the legs cut out. I'm gonna go ahead and I think I'm going to either screw or nail in the legs from the top, and that's how I'm going to join them. I'm worried that if I tried to put a screw through it, I would really just split it out. It's not a hardwood, so I'm not going to try to do screws. I'm going to basically just hammer in some nails. Here's another part where if I had a nail gun, this would probably take all of 2 seconds to put together, but I don't. I only have a hammer. So yeah, I'm gonna just give this a go. Bruh, I need a nail gun so bad. Fudge nuggets. Would be really sad if I break my base here. This can absolutely not be the correct way to do this. That looks horrible. It's actually okay. I mean, I guess that works. It's definitely lifting off a little bit from the top of the angle here, but once there's some weight on there, I'm hoping it'll push it down. Now we need to do the other 2 legs. I just know that this isn't the right way to do this. I'm certain that people are cringing watching me do this like this. But look, you work with the tools you got, and the tools I have is a hammer. Flip. We have 2 legs. Now, time for the last leg. No frickin' way. Wow, that's so loose. These are like just coming out over here. All right, so the joint is technically working, but it's very weak because the nails are just in parallel because I couldn't hammer them in at an angle. I don't have a nail gun, but what I do have is a staple gun. So I think I'm gonna put staples in the outside on the overlap between the leg and the base, and then I'm gonna try to hammer in the staple. Yeah, that sounded dumb even when I said it out loud, but I can't think of anything else, so we're just gonna try it. I think that's a little better. Maybe I just go ahead and put another 2 staples on either side of that and hammer those in. I think that's what I'm gonna do. That one worked. This is technically working. So that isn't horrible. It doesn't look great, but I think once it's spray painted black, that's going to forgive a lot of errors and ugliness. I'm now going to paint it and let it dry just so we can get an idea of how it's going to look. And then next week we are going to tackle the actual lamp section as well as the 3D printed cage that's going to go around the bulb. But for now, let's go ahead and paint this thing. Well, there it is. Definitely not perfect. The joints are really weird. There's staples in it, at least for the goals that I had for this build. I think once we put a lampshade on there and an Edison bulb, it's gonna look pretty cool. Thanks for joining for this part of the build. I'd love to hear what you think about how this went. And if you have ideas on how I could have done this joinery better, because I'm pretty sure I did it the worst possible way, I'd love to hear it, so drop me a comment. Stay tuned for part 2 where we 3D print a lamp cage for this and then wire it all up. If you've enjoyed this build, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.